Hello everyone, welcome to MBA Karo. XAT has a different marking scheme than other exams. In other exams, it is quite obvious that, let's say, for example, in CAT, if you get a question right, you get 1 mark, 3 marks, and you lose 1 mark for a negative, that is, if you get it wrong, and no marks for unattempted question. Similarly, in SNAP, you must have seen that you get 1 for correct minus 0.25 for incorrect. And in some examinations you do not have any negative marking, but in that there is a different thing that for 8 marks you do not get any negative marks, and then post that you get minus zero point 0.1 for unattempted questions. So in this video I'm going to explain that marking system so that you can mark the questions accordingly in order to avoid negative marking and also to balance your cutoff scores. Okay, so watch this video to understand that how does negative marking affect in that and how it is done section wise. Okay, so I'll take a couple of cases with number of attempts high and another with number of attempts low. So if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. First, understand what is ZAT marking system. So ZAT, it is applicable only to the part 1. Okay, so it is going to have 75 questions, and for each correct answer there is 1 mark. Simple. For each incorrect answer it is point minus 0.25. These are quite obvious things to understand. Now, marks awarded for each unattempted question after 8 unattempted questions is minus zero point 0.1 mark. Now, what does this mean? Students get confused that whether it is section wise or overall. It is overall 8 questions. It is not that you leave 8 questions in quant or 8 questions then you get negative in quant. No, if you have left 8 questions in the paper, that means you will start accumulating negative marks for unattempted questions. So that means if you do 67 or more questions, then you do not have this thing applicable. But if you attempt less than 67, then you will be losing marks for unattempted questions. Okay. And as I told you, this does not apply to the general knowledge questions. So general knowledge is simple, right? Plus 1 0. So general knowledge is plus 1 0. It is not counted for percentile score also. So do not worry about that section. Mark all the questions. Okay. Now coming to the part 1 paper, which is basically the score builder, which will decide your percentile in the examination. Let us understand this marking scheme through a couple of examples. Okay. So if you attempt 67 or more questions. Okay. Now as I told you that 8 questions are exempted from negative marking. So you have to attempt at least 67 to avoid that minus zero point 0.1. So a very simple example, it is very easy to calculate score in that case. For correct question, you will get 1 mark, and incorrect, you will lose 0.25. So let's say this example, a person gets 13 marks and loses 2.25. So his raw score is 10.75. A person loses 6, that is minus 1.5. So net score will be 12.5 minus 1, net score 23. So the total final score will be this. So correct minus 1/4 of incorrect. Okay, so that will be the final score. And GK does not matter. The number of questions that you get right, you get that score, right? So this was a simple thing, that plus 1 for correct and minus 0.25 for incorrect questions, right? Now let us talk about the second thing, which is the critical one, that if you have less than 67 attempts, in that case how is the marking going to be calculated? Now, correct, incorrect, raw score you can calculate. Raw score is basically correct minus incorrect upon 4. So this raw score you can calculate based on the basic calculations. Now let us understand that how this final score is calculated based on this. Now see this, a person attempted 61 marks, 61 questions out of 75. So 75 minus 8 are exempted. So 67 has the number of questions that you can attempt without negative is 67. Then remove 61, you get 6 questions. So for 6 questions, you will lose minus zero point 0.6 marks. Okay. Now, how this minus 0.6 is affected across the three sections? So it is proportional to the number of questions, proportional to the number of questions in the sections. So let's do the math here. So excess of unattempted questions is 6 because 67 were allowed. Till 67 one could attempt, but he attempted only 61, so 6 marks, 6 questions extra. So for these 6 the person will lose minus 0.6 marks. Now how it is section wise? So VALR will have 26 questions. Okay, so in 26 questions, out of total, sorry, this is 75, not 76. It is going to be upon 75. So if you do the calculations, it turns out to be approximately minus 0.2053, okay, upon 75. So this means that you will lose 0.21 marks in this section. So 11.25 was the score. You will get a final score of 11.04. Similarly, DM section has 21 questions. So one would lose 0.1737. So 0.17 marks lost here. So it will become 12.83. And the third section, which is QADI, has 28 questions. So it will be minus zero point 0.6 into 28 by 75, which is minus 0.22. So a person will lose minus 0.22 marks and the final score will be 19.03. Now a person has lost a total of minus zero point 0.6. So minus zero point 0.6, that results in your raw score as 42 point, the final score as 42.9 marks. So you will lose those. So this is easy to calculate, that how much excess you will lose, and this is how you calculate the marks that you will lose per section. So suppose you attempted 52 questions, right? 52 questions means you will lose minus 1.5. 15 questions you will lose marks for not attempting, minus 1.5. So in VALR it will be minus 1.5 into 26 by 75. Okay, so which will turn out to be 50 times, so minus 0.52. So like this, in same proportion you will lose marks. So into, so if you want to calculate your scores later on, you do not need to do it. Actually they will like once they send the result they will give it to you. But let me tell you about how to calculate your expected, like if you are scoring near cutoff and all. So VALR cutoff would be around 7 to 8 marks. So let us say in case you are scoring, let's say you got just 8 marks in VLR, and like based on your understanding during the paper, you now you want to be on the safer side, so you wish to attempt more. Okay, so remember that you need to attempt slightly more than what you are expecting in the examination, because first of all in VLR accuracy is not guaranteed, and secondly, like if you fall in this category that you are attempting less than 67 questions, so remember that you will lose marks for unattempted questions, so that will further scale your score down. So accordingly attempt the three sections. Now one question comes in our mind, that should we mark flukes? Okay, should we mark flukes to make the number of attempts 67 at least? Now let us understand that in case you do not attempt a question, okay, so or you attempted wrong, so incorrect attempt gives you minus 0.25 and unattempt gives you minus zero point 0.1. Okay, so there is a difference of minus 0.15. So statistically it is worth taking a risk. Okay, it is worth taking a risk because anyway you are losing minus point, you are losing minus zero point 0.1. If you get it incorrect you will lose minus 0.15. Okay, and if you do some statistics, let us say you mark 5 questions randomly. Okay, so if you had not attempted those, let us say you attempt 5 questions And if you had not attempted those 5 questions, you would have got zero point 0.5 if you did not attempt. And if you attempted all and your hit rate is 1/5 correct, because that will have 5 questions, you got one correct and four incorrect, your net score will be 0. Okay, so it is always better to attempt questions. Again, it depends on luck, right? These are statistics that work on large number of data sets, like if you're attempting hundreds of questions but there are fewer questions, if your luck is bad you might end up losing more. So it is always a tricky game, but I would suggest you that attempt good number of questions in DM, because DM, what you think is not right. Even the best of the people who score very well on DM consistently cannot tell what is the right answer. Okay, so try to attempt at least 15 questions in order to be on the safe side, because you need around 7 8 as the cutoff. But let's say out of 15 you get, to be assured, that 10 correct, and even if you get 5 incorrect you have that cushion to clear the cutoff. So I would suggest that DM may try to at least attempt at least 15. Quant, attempt only those which you know, because quant is sure, you know that the answer is right. If you have solved it correctly, unless you have made silly mistakes, the chances of accuracy is high. Okay, and verbal also try to attempt a decent number of questions, because in RCs like grammar and all you might be confident, but in RCs you may not get the questions correct. So DM and VA try to attempt a good number of questions. Okay, because accuracy is low in these two sections, especially DM it is very tricky. Verbal also try to attempt more. Quant, do not attempt unnecessarily. Okay, unless you know the question, do not attempt it. Yes, if you want to take risk, then you can go for this technique also, that you try to attempt the maximum number of questions. It might work in your favor, it might not. बट इफ यू आर इन द बॉर्डर लाइन, ठीक है, लेट्स से इफ यू आर स्कोरिंग लेस, ठीक है, आपका पेपर खराब जा रहा है, फिर तो रिस्क ले लो. बट अगर आप बॉर्डर लाइन लाइक 35 के अराउंड स्कोर आपको लग रहा है कि इतना बन सकता है, देन थिंग्स माइट बी रिस्की. Okay, so it is again a tricky game, can't say that whether it is a right move or wrong, but just to tell you that how the marking works. I told you ki incorrect questions gives you minus 0.25 and unattempt will give you minus 0.1. So all the best for ZAT 2024. Wish you do well on the first examination of the year. And tomorrow we will be doing the exam analysis at 5:30 p.m. I'll be giving a brief analysis about the exam difficulty level, how it is compared to the last year, what could be the expected cutoffs, etc. And question discussion session at 9 p.m. wherein memory based questions we shall discuss, and so that you can calculate some of the questions and get an estimate of your scores in that session. So thanks for watching this video and all the best for ZAT.